You're listening to Living with Louie.
Hi, folks, and welcome to this edition of Living with Louie. Today, we'd like to talk about how two people bonded over Louie Body, and I'd like to introduce to everyone Mike. Mike and I met on Facebook, and we have found a bond between the two of us with our Louie Body. So, hi, Mike.
Hi, Larry.
So what you sent to me your bio there a little bit. You began 5 years ago. Um, was when you first started with Louis Body.
Yes. I 5 years ago, I noticed slight right-sided tremors, and it progressed until then the cognition portion started, and it just become intrusive after a while.
I found it interesting, and one of the things that you had written to me that tell everybody a little bit about your background, your educational background, because that kind
Okay.
of fascinates me that you have this background that you have, and now you
Okay.
have this to deal with.
Right. I'm actually a clinical social worker. I um, major or actually emphasized in forensic, and I was based out of different correctional facilities, both prisons and jails. I also um, worked with different law enforcement agencies such as the U.S. Marshal Service. Um, I noticed working or inside the jailhouse, I was mental health supervisor for a 13-story jail. And when I noticed the tremors, I kind of knew what was going on. I didn't suspect it was Lewy body. I thought it was just Parkinson's. And
But
after a
just
while,
Parkinson's is bad enough, isn't it?
it is. And as time progressed, I started noticing myself. There's several pods inside jails, and I would forget why I would go into a pod, and I wouldn't recognize where I was at. And the guards, the detention deputies, would point me in the right direction. Even the inmates would, and a lot of the inmates. I remember one in particular. I was subbing for the pregnant women's group, and I just blanked out. And I vaguely remember the ladies looking at me and asking, Mike, are you okay? And I responded, I said, I think so. And they're like, do you know where you're at? And I said, I think so. But that was I could tell they were sincerely concerned about me. Um, Time progressed, and I started losing my concentration. I had to do reports if there was an inmate death or any incident. I had to do what's called morbidity report,
Right.
and they used to be very easy for me, but towards the end, I mean, I struggled with writing the whole report. It had to actually be court standards. So I was able to do that. Well, as time progressed, my body began to continue weakening, and of course, my cognition began to slip. And I realized it was dangerous for me to work in that environment. So um, I went ahead and I'd already been placed on Social Security disability, but I was entered into the Ticket to Work program where you work, I believe, 9 months and still collect all full benefits. So I went to work. Um, I left that job And then I moved from Oklahoma City to the Tulsa area. And I went to work for a neuropsychiatrist as a therapist in his office. And one day he called me to his office, and I thought I was being reprimanded. And I sat down, and he told me, he goes, I've been watching you for a while. And he goes, I'm suspecting, he goes, your physical are showing signs of Parkinson's. He goes, but your cognition is definitely showing some signs of some Lewy body.
Right.
And he
Well,
explained to me,
you have other things that that I know that you shared with me that
Mhm.
kind of make this whole Lewy body venture even more complicated.
right,
Um,
when I moved back to Tulsa, my wife of 10 years decided she did not want to participate in the journey with me and just basically left.
that had to be
And
tough.
it was. And, here I was. And fortunately, I was on the Ticket to Work program. And so I immediately left the house upon her request, and I found an apartment, ground level apartment. And I did okay for a little while, but it was a Thanksgiving day. I got up out of my chair and I just become disoriented, and I took a bad fall and dislocated my I believe my hip. And I lay there for 4 to 5 hours. And I have a dog, a little Jack Russell, and Miles was barking his head off to get somebody's attention. And so finally, someone walking by knocked knocked on the door, and I told them, I said, the door's locked, I can't open it. So they went and called um, maintenance, and maintenance opened the door, and they come in and found me on the floor. And my dad found out about it, and he reported it to Social Security Administration, and they did an investigation on me.
Was that through like Adult Protective Services?
Yeah, I think it was.
Right.
And they did an investigation and stated that I was not able to live safely alone in a home because I had accidentally set items on fire while cooking, and I burned myself, and I was taking many falls.
Well, it sounds like it was being an unsafe environment for you.
Oh, it was. It definitely was. But I was in denial, and Social Security stated that since I didn't have any help, that they were making me relocate from Oklahoma back to Kansas, where I was raised. So I moved back into the house of my parents, and my mother was very ill. And I think it was the reason I was sent back was to help my dad take care of my mom until she passed. And we did that. And then eventually, um, my dad passed about 9 months ago from dementia himself. So I was able, as a social worker, I was able to get him into proper treatment into the hospital, and where he passed on hospice. I think he lasted on hospice one day, but it was a blessing that he's in a better place. But I currently engaged with Deanna, and she's been my godsend.
Let me ask you a
We,
question because I'm
mhm,
curious. I
mhm.
know you mentioned that your wife left you. How did you meet Dee?
How did I meet Dee?
Yeah,
Through Facebook personals,
isn't that something? Uh,
and we just hit it off. And she has disability as well.
right?
And I was nervous when we met, and I was very upfront and honest with her. And I told her, I said, I you can obviously tell I have Parkinson's. I said, but I'm also diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And she, researched it, and she looked at me and told me, she goes, I'm gonna be there with you. She goes, I'm not afraid. She goes, my late husband passed from brain cancer. So she goes, I'm not afraid of your situation.
You know how refreshing that she took the time to research it and educate herself as to what exactly you were telling her and exactly what you were dealing with.
Yes, and that means a whole lot. And we support each other. Um, Deanna fights her blood pressure, but we have a medical alert, which we've had to use a few times. I've had to use it before. I'm no longer allowed to drive. I received treatment from Kansas University Medical Center, and they have ceased my driving privileges. And but while I was driving, I think it was 3 or 4 instances where I just become completely disoriented and had to have the medical alert GPS my way home.
You know, it's almost I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've talked about it in one of my other podcasts episodes about the fog that you get into, and it's like you're disconnected
ER, and
from the
it's
reality
scary.
that you're supposed to be in anyway. But you it's like you're not really present. You're there, but you're not.
Right. And it is, as well as I do, it's very scary.
It can be very scary, yes.
And yeah, and I'm fortunate to have Deanna here because I, again, I don't know, I would be probably in a care unit somewhere because every now and then, um, Deanna has taken my car keys officially because it was 3 nights ago. I got out of bed about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was ready to go out to the car. And she stopped me and she asked where I was going. And I told her, so, well, I need to go buy light bulbs.
Hmm.
And she goes, you need light bulbs? I said,
At
yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And she goes, well, there's no place open right now, for one thing. And she said, you're not going anywhere. She goes, it's just not safe. Her thought was, there's a lot of times I revert back and still, in my mind, believe I live in Oklahoma City. And it's very plausible that I would have gotten in that car and would have started driving towards Oklahoma City.
Oh,
And I know had that happened, I know for a fact I would have become a silver alert.
yeah. You. Thank goodness that she realized what was going on. I know that when I hear that she watches out for you and everything, I will tell you
Hmm.
that that's one of the things that my wife can sometimes tell what's happening, and just her touch, just telling me, "Hey, okay,"
Yeah,
can
that's what it
can,
takes.
can be so calming. Yeah,
And
sounds like Dee's a very special lady.
she really is. Sounds like your wife is as well.
Well,
And
thank goodness you
yesterday
were
we,
able to find her.
yeah, exactly, because I'll be on, I had basically given up on meeting anyone. I just really, after my my wife left me that way, most of my friends are in law enforcement, considering I worked with law enforcement.
Right.
And they finally persuaded me to go, while I lived in Oklahoma, to go try out going on a date.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out on a blind date, and this woman looked straight at me and she goes, I'm going to tell you right now. She goes, I'm not settling for you. And I said, what? And she goes, I'm not settling for you. She goes, you're just not there. And I left. I just left her. I left her the check.
That's got to be hurt. That's got to be hurtful. That's all I
It
can
is.
say. I
It is.
mean,
And I thought,
that's
how cruel.
how right. And I will tell you that I was looking at something today on Facebook, and it was people commenting. It was a picture of Robin Williams and the quote about you never know what someone else's struggle is, so be kind.
Mhm.
And how many comments there are in there that people still don't realize that the man had Lewy body, and certainly don't know what Lewy body is.
Exactly. And
It's
he would have
there's
been the last one you'd think of because he was so energetic and quick minded and quick witted. And I think it just took people by shock him of all people.
and also someone who could afford the absolute best of medical care. However, he was never diagnosed, and it's
He was
just
never
goes.
diagnosed.
There's so many people that go misdiagnosed or not diagnosed.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I can say I'm fortunate about. I do receive um, my medical treatment from KU Medical, and they take very good care of me. And I'm donating my brain to them after I pass, and so they can further explore into Lewy body.
That's
And
that's an amazing thing because I know you and I have talked about this, and so we'll put it out here for the rest of the world to
mhm,
hear that at times you know that the best gift that you can give or the best thing that you can do is to say, hey, learn all you can, and maybe they can help the next person, and that's
exactly, if it keeps one person from not living basically what I call a torturous life at times, um, it's all worth it.
yes.
And it is, and it is. It's just I would never imagine I would be dealing with this, but it happens, and I can't say I'm okay with it. I'm learning to accept it, but I'm not giving up quite yet.
Well,
Um,
I admire that. I think that there are it's easy to fall into the prognosis of this diagnosis, if you will,
mm,
and easy to say, okay, and just not get up and fight. But there are ways to fight this, and I know that you know that, and I know that
mhm,
you're fighting it on similar fronts that I am through the
mhm.
physical therapy
Yes.
and learning more about how to manage and cope with what we have.
Right.
Y-
And I was surprised a few months ago when I was at an appointment with KU, and I was halfway joking when I I said, I would like to take a bucket list trip. And so I would like to go to a Texas Rangers baseball game in Arlington, and I would like to take one final cruise. And both my doctors looked at each other. They looked back at me and they smiled and said, go enjoy your life while you can. And they said, we're going to relax your travel restrictions. So Deanna and I are booked on a cruise. We're going to a Rangers game on the 1st, and then we're starting our cruise on the 3rd. And I've already been in contact with the Texas Rangers organization, and they're or organizing a meet and greet with the players,
Well,
and they
that's not all they've done. I know that you had told me about reaching out to them, and they had
mhm,
sent you a nice package. And
they did. They sent me a very nice package with a hat and grill cover and autographed players cards, and they she just emailed me this morning, so we're looking forward to seeing you.
well, let's give a shout out to the Texas Rangers.
That's all right. They're a good organization.
They obviously are. I mean, it's that so few organizations care about
Hmm.
what's happening with their fan base, but for them to step up, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, and we're 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 excited about going on a cruise. We don't know if we're going to go on any excursions because I just don't know if either of us are physically able. But it's just the fact of getting away, and I've been on several cruises myself.
It's
Been a
knowing you can
while.
do something else.
Right. KU is giving me that one last chance to go. It may not be my last chance, but at least I know they're giving me that
They're
chance.
giving you a chance, right?
Right. And that's just it. And, um, I can't express my enough gratitude towards them. So, and Dee and I, we're meeting with a gentleman on Wednesday to finalize into life preparations to basically, once I pass, I have to be cremated after they, remove my brain and send it to KU. So we're going to get everything all set up. So, hopefully it'll be a while before it happens, but
Amen.
we'll have it set down because I have to be realistic about things. And that's one thing I can say is I was a very sick child. I beat childhood cancer 3 times.
Hmm.
And, the whole thing is I'm not afraid of death. I don't want it to come too soon. But when it does, I'm not afraid of it. And I'm not going to run from it.
Right.
And I think that's one thing I do have in my corner.
Well, I think that's that's one thing that nobody gets to get away from.
Right. And yeah, it's just like, that's one of the certainties of life. And, but I'm working to enjoy my life to the best that I can. That's why I'm participating in intensive physical therapy. And it sounds like they're wanting me to go back into speech therapy a little bit.
Well, I will tell you that one of the things that I noticed when I started talking to you on the phone is almost like looking in the mirror.
I noticed that as well. I really did.
You hear the similarities in the voice. So we're getting close to the end of what we can do. I'd like to continue this with you, Mike.
Most certainly, I would like that, Larry.
Very good, sir. Oh,
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
you're quite welcome.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Living with Louie.